Hi guys, today I'm bringing you a video on the British Army 1960 pattern combat uniform, and this is the first standard issue combat uniform that the British Army procured, based of course on the combat uniform issued to a limited degree in Korea and then afterwards in Europe as a field uniform. This is the first pattern smock, first pattern 1960 pattern smock. This is a slightly modified second pattern. There's no official, as far as I'm aware, there's no official designation differentiating these two, but there was a slight design change halfway through production. This essentially, with some small modifications, standardised the 1952 pattern combat uniform, or combat smock, or combat sateen, as the nomenclature states on the label. Basically, you have two patch pockets at the top, zipper down to here, 3/4 length zipper, lower pockets here which are actually pleated, although the pleats fallen out of these as they did, but it gives a bit more volume in the lower pockets there. Obviously you then have the button over flap at the front, which completes the closure down to here. Say the zip is only 3/4 length to just below the waist, just below the draw cord at the waist. You have draw cord at waist and at the hem. Stitched collar, which is quite a distinctive feature. If I turn this around, you'll be able to see that more clearly there. A stitched collar, which can be turned up, has a button flap underneath, button tab underneath the collar there, and a button here, so you can raise that and button it round. Bit of extra warmth. Small section of the pocket stitched off here. I'd always assumed previously this was a pen pocket, but given a little bit of experimentation, it turns out that a quartz fibre type dosimeter fits very nicely in there, so it could well be for that. The same is true of the pocket on the preceding parkas, which were obviously designed for use in Korea primarily. Turn that straight on again here. Darts there and there, quite well tailored in at the chest here, and the way the arms were attached in trials was noted that it was a little bit constrictive in certain firing positions, which is what led to this design here, which we'll talk about, this slight modification to the design here, which we'll talk about in a minute. Another feature that was removed in the second pattern design, but that's present on this design, the first pattern, is a ventilation slit underneath the arm there, which you can see. The cuffs have two buttons to allow adjustment there to be tightened in, and it's just a simple cuff stitched on there with a buttonhole, so you can adjust that. Turn that back round there. And this of course has been worn with the 1950s era and used through the 60s. Khaki flannel shirt with woven tie. Moving on to this example, this is a slightly later example. The changeover happened between 64 and 65, so 65 seems to be the last time this pattern were made, at the end of the contract basically. The 64 seems to be the first time these were made, so there was some overlap in manufacture. Not that these wouldn't have been issued right until the end, of course. If you've got it in stock, the Army's not going to stop issuing it. This second pattern differs in the way the arms are attached in the chest. It's less constrictive. That was basically during field trials, and particularly, as I understand, with airborne troops, it was initially expected that this would replace the parachutist smock with airborne troops, and didn't in the end. A similar thing happened when DPM was introduced, and likewise with MTP. It's an old story going back. It was found that this was too constrictive during those trials, particularly in relation to airborne troops complained about this. Well, this one was rather, the first pattern. So the modifications were made in the mid-60s to this. There's no change in nomenclature, they're both still 1960 pattern. This example deletes the slit under the arm. You can see the ventilation slit is no longer there, and the way the arms are attached in the chest is slightly retailored, slightly different cuts to allow more freedom of movement. Otherwise the design is essentially the same. Patch pockets, pleated pockets at the waist, the button closure, the zip halfway, or 3/4 of the way down the front there, or 2/3. The seams and everything are the same. One thing I didn't point out on the other smock, which I will do in a second because the back button's missing on this. I turn this round. In common with the 1952 pattern, or combat sateen from Korea, this has buttons to attach a hood. Central button here, and then these buttons here that attach the epaulettes also have are also used to attach the hood, hence why the epaulettes are so long and buttoned so high up. And the hood, which we'll look at briefly in a moment, is simply part of the Korean War era combat uniform set. The nomenclature was never changed, it seems, and they were manufactured right through the 50s, and it seems that stocks were sufficient that further manufacture wasn't necessary in the 60s. I've certainly not seen a 60s dated example, although they could be out there. I could very easily, they could have continued manufacturing them, but the nomenclature doesn't seem to change at all. There's no specific 1960 pattern hood. So there we are. That's the two different patterns. Very sort of, one other difference to mention. I say the actual look of it from the front is not particularly easy to distinguish between. However, one of the more easy to distinguish features is that this example, in common with the Korean War combats, has the elbow reinforcement patch, which is a double thickness of cloth, and right the way around the arm in a band. This one deletes that and has a semicircle on each side of the seam, making a circular or oval reinforcement patch on the elbow there, as you can see. So that's probably one of the easiest visual, without lifting up the sleeves and everything if they're hanging on hangers. If you're looking to purchase one, this is probably the easiest way of seeing the difference between the two. Turn those back in there. I have the first pattern turned inside out here so we can look at the interior details. As you can see, lined down to the waist, and basically the bottom of the lining forms the channel for the draw cord, the waist there. Lined in gabardine. Later on, these would be lined in poplin, which you can see which we'll have a look at when we look at the interior of the trousers. I have a hanger tab at the collar there. Say the sleeves are fully lined. There's an internal pocket here, as you can see. Internal breast pocket in there, and the labelling there, which we'll have a look at shortly. If we bring it back around here, the sleeves are fully lined, as you can see, down to the cuff. Fully lined there. Turn this around here. Another internal pocket there, inside here. And you can see down here there's just the interior of the lower pockets. There's no lining beyond the waist there at the draw cord. The zip comes down halfway, as you can see, and you can clearly see the detail of the draw cord of the hem there as well. So there we are. That's the interior of this, and we'll just bring the camera in now and we'll have a quick look at the label. So here we have the label, and as you can see, this is a first issue example dated 1963. And you have the US and Canadian sizes at the bottom there to basically allow cross-reference between different NATO allies. And you have all the details there for how to wear the smock. Here we have the label on the second issue example, and you can see a size 5, so a slightly smaller size for different height range, slightly smaller height range. Still has if I unfold the label here, if I can. Still has the comparative sizes there of US and Canadian. The Canadian's using the British size system anyway. It's a bit redundant really, but just gives the comparison there. 1965 dated, and then you have all the wearing instructions for different wearing in different climates and so forth. And obviously this one issued to a Warrant Officer Class 2 Coates, WO2 Coates, who I don't have any information on, unfortunately. There's no number in this to check, try and find out any history on him. But there we are. So here we have the combat trousers. These are basically very similar in layout and design to the last pattern of the Korean War sateen combat uniform. You have a dressing pocket here on the leg, similar to the battle dress uniform that preceded it. A mat pocket on the side of the leg here, as you can see there. The pockets aren't let into the seams of the trousers, they're actually stitched in just forward of the seam, the hip pockets. At the waist you have button belt loops and side adjusters with buttons there, which have adjusted in. Got buttons in there for braces on the inside. We'll have a proper look at the interior of this in a minute. And there's zip fly there, which has, if we zip up here, has a zip both top and bottom, so you can zip up or zip down to open that, as you can see. Big reinforcing pieces at the knees, and these do have holes in the bottom hem here and here for a draw cord, but I haven't seen these fitted with a draw cord myself. Whether that was a part of the design that was never followed through, I don't know, or whether it was simply an option that you could add your own, I don't know on that particular detail. So if anyone knows, please do say in the comments. Turning them around, looking at the back, we have a simple patch pocket, button through patch pocket on the rear, the right rear hip here, and this, you can see the layout of the belt loops there across the back, button down belt loops there. and this one's been repaired at some point, had quite a neat repair. You can see that there is reinforcing around the seat here as well to make them a bit harder wearing in the rear there. And we'll turn these inside out now, and we can have a look at the interior. So you can see here, these are lined pretty much to the bottom. You can see there, we've got the lining material here, which is cotton poplin. Earlier it would have been gabardine. These are slightly later example. There is no date on the label here, but these would be late 60s, very early 70s probably, given the contract number. We'll have a close-up look at the label in just a moment. So they're fully lined to the bottom there. You can see the brace buttons and tabs there at the top, the interior of the fly there, and as I say, the lining material all the way down to the bottom there. So as I say, we'll just bring the camera in a moment and have a close-up look at the label here. Here we have the trouser label, which you can see doesn't have a date stamp on it, and this is quite common from later issue 1960 pattern, certainly moving into the late 60s, 70s, dates began to disappear from British clothing labels, which is quite frustrating, but these are quite a late issue pair of trousers, but the label's nice and clear, so I picked these ones to have a look at. So the last detail to look at here is the hood, which you can see here. It's lined in gabardine. Attachable hood for combat suit, and the nomenclature is Hoods Combat Attachable Sateen. Size number 1, and you can see this is dated 1953. This is part of the Korean War combat uniform, still issued with 1960 pattern. The pattern doesn't seem to have changed, nor does the nomenclature. Size number 1, 12457. So it's basically, they're sized for the different smock sizes. You need a different size of hood, but this fits both 5 and 7, so it's compatible with the smocks I have. And I'll just show you now how it attaches. Turn the mannequin round, turn the collar up, unbutton the epaulettes, bring the hood in, button the hood on, there we go, like that, button the epaulettes back on. That's the hood attached onto the smock there, and then obviously you have a press stud to attach around the front and a draw cord to pull in the hood around your face to provide protection. So there we are. So there we have an overview of the British Army 1960 pattern combat uniform. There will be videos coming up on the Korean War era combat uniform, the 1960 pattern DPM uniform, and various other combat uniforms the British Army have issued over the years. If you haven't already, check out, there's a link in the description to the Facebook group where you can basically get heads up of videos that are coming up, and also I'll be posting photographs from the collection as well for those who might be interested. And if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell so you get notifications when new videos come up. And yeah, until next time, bye for now.